That family never returned from the snow camp. What was it that wiped them out? Snow covered the foothills of the mountain like a white carpet. The sharp, heavy cold of the air made their breath foggy, and the moonlight left a shimmering glow on the snow. James pulled the car to the edge of the campsite. "Here we are," he said with a calm smile. But the fatigue in his eyes didn't fade. Alice wrapped her coat tightly around herself and said, "Come on, we need to set up the tent. It's getting dark quickly, and I'm freezing." Evelyn and Alex got out of the car and ran around, leaving tracks in the snow. "Dad, it's going to be really quiet here tonight, isn't it?" Alex asked, his voice nervous but curious. "Definitely, son. It'll be a bit quiet, but there's nothing to be afraid of," James said, glancing around. They set up the tent and built a fire. The family had formed a small circle in the middle of the camp. The orange light of the fire softly illuminated the snow-covered forest. Alice was preparing coffee while the children played with each other. But Evelyn suddenly stopped and looked quietly at her father. "Dad, I saw something behind those trees," she said quietly. James shook his head. "Come on, honey. It's just the shadows reflected by the snow. Come here. Let's sit by the fire." But Alex also noticed strange tracks in the snow. "Dad, these aren't our tracks." James bent down and examined the tracks closely. They were irregular, some of them oddly scattered. He felt a chill, but didn't say anything. As the night progressed, there was a balance between the sound of the fire and the silence of the snow. The children went to their tents to sleep. Alice stayed outside a little longer to check on the fire. James looked around before going inside. The snow made a soft crunching sound with every step, and the wind rustled the trees. Just then, Evelyn's scream echoed through the tent. "Dad! Help me!" James rushed to the tent. Evelyn was nowhere to be seen. He unzipped the tent and scanned the snow-covered area. There were only Alex's frightened eyes. "It took her," Alex said, his voice trembling. James looked around with a crushing fear in his heart. But there was no one there. Alice came running, shocked and frightened. "What's happening?" James just shook his head. "Evelyn, she's gone." In the silence of the camp, screams, whispers, and the howling wind blended together. James and Alice clasped hands and began searching, shivering. Alex trembled as he walked beside them. But with each step, new tracks appeared in the snow. These tracks seemed to be dragging Evelyn away. James whispered to Alice, "It's not just the cold and snow attacking us. It's something else. We have to be quiet." Alice pressed her trembling hands together. "James, Evelyn is almost gone. I want her. I want my daughter," she cried silently. They searched the campsite step by step. Every tree, every shadow seemed like a dangerous creature. Evelyn's screams mingled with the wind's howl, turning into a whisper that broke the silence. For a moment, James stopped, noticing an odd trail in the snow. The tracks pointed in the direction Evelyn had left the tent, but the movements were irregular, as if someone had been dragging her. Alex clung to his father, trembling. "Dad, will it take me too?" James knelt down and looked into his son's eyes. "No, Alex. We just have to be careful. I'll protect you." But even his own voice lacked confidence. Suddenly, Alex looked behind his father. "Dad, there!" James scanned the dark forest with his eyes. A shadow quickly disappeared among the trees. Alex screamed and James tried to catch him, but the boy vanished in an instant. Alice screamed in panic. "Alex!" But her voice was drowned out by the howling wind. Now only James and Alice remained. Both clung to each other in the darkness, their breaths caught in their throats. The silence was thick, the wind howling, and the shadows closing in with every step. Alice whispered, James, this can't be a game. Alice was crying. James said quietly, "No, but we'll find a way out." But as he scanned the darkness with his eyes, he noticed something watching him. The shadows were moving, silently approaching. Just then, Alice's scream echoed. James ran to hold the woman, but something in the darkness quickly pulled him away. Alice had also disappeared. James looked around helplessly, his heart pounding. His eyes were lost in the shadows piercing the darkness. With every step, the tracks on the snow seemed to be guiding him, but at the same time, they were setting a trap. Left alone, James began to move forward silently. The wind howled, the trees creaked, and the shadows swirled around him. With every breath, the fear grew. Suddenly, a shadow leaped toward James. He let out one last scream and vanished into the darkness. The campsite fell silent once more. The snow continued to fall slowly, covering everything. The moonlight illuminated only the pristine white blanket. In the silence, a pair of eyes still seemed to be watching. If you had experienced something like this, would you have survived? We never should have climbed that mountain. We had no idea it would end like this, and you could never guess what happened in the end. Snow, white flakes drifting silently from the sky, as if trying to cover the entire world. As we climbed from the foot of the mountain, my breath turned into mist, my lungs filling with air as sharp and cold as a blade. The crunch of my friend's footsteps mixed with the sound of mine on the snow. In that white silence, there was no one else but us. Our destination was the old wooden observation cabin at the summit. Abandoned for years, not even marked on maps. We had always wanted to go there. At the end of the day, we planned to arrive and enjoy a nice cup of coffee. As the wind grew heavier and harsher, the fog above us reduced our visibility to only a few meters. I narrowed my eyes. "We need to move faster," I said. My friend just nodded. We walked in silence for a while. The snowstorm grew more intense. The wind howled in my ears like a wild animal. My hands were freezing inside my gloves. Then he stopped. "Hold on," he said, his voice almost lost in the storm. "I really need to pee." I nodded. "All right, don't go too far." "Got it," he replied. I watched him walk off into the white mist. It was as if he stepped not just a few paces away, but into another world. Minutes passed. I waited. Snow stung my face, numbing my fingers. But he didn't return. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice shredded by the wind. No reply. I called out again. "You okay? Come on back." Still no answer. I gripped the strap of my backpack tightly and headed in the direction he had gone. His footprints were clear in the snow at first, but then they simply ended, as if something had reached up from beneath the snow and pulled him under. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. Should I turn back or keep going? A voice inside me whispered, "Don't go." But leaving him there was impossible. The fog thickened. The further I walked, the darker the sky became. All I could hear was my own breathing and the muffled silence of the snow. Finally, behind a mound of snow, I saw a dark shape. I approached, and my knees nearly gave out. He was there, half buried in the snow, his body frozen solid. His eyes were wide open, his face locked in an expression of terror. His arms were twisted at unnatural angles, his lips sealed by ice. "God, no!" I cried. I was half sobbing, half gasping as I knelt beside him and pulled him into my arms. The cold of his skin pierced through my gloves and sank into my bones. "I'm getting you out of here," I whispered. It wasn't just the sight of his dead body. It was the weight of his absence that crushed me. I didn't know who, or what had done this to him, but I had to take his body out of here. Just as I began to rise, a deep, menacing growl came from behind me. I froze. That sound belonged to an animal. Slowly, I turned my head. Out of the darkness, a massive silhouette emerged. Snowflakes clung to its shoulders, glinting in the glow of its eyes. It was a bear, but not like any bear I had ever seen. Its fur was crusted with ice, and each breath that steamed from its mouth carried the metallic stench of blood. Its eyes were empty. No life. Only rage and hunger. It took a step forward. The ice beneath it cracked. I stood motionless, a frozen statue. My backpack slipped from my shoulder and hit the snow. In that instant, the bear's gaze locked on my hands, which were still clutching the corpse. And I knew I didn't have much time left. It roared. A sound so deep and powerful, even the clouds above seemed to tremble. I tried to run, but my legs dragged heavy through the snow. My breath was ragged, my heart pounding like it would tear through my chest. A shadow fell over me. Steel claws tore through my jacket and my skin in one brutal swipe. I dropped to my knees. The snow beneath me bloomed red with my blood. I collapsed face first into the snow, my eyes finding my friend once more. His frozen gaze still seemed to be fixed on me. The bear's breath was at my neck, hot, heavy, and sharp. The last thing I heard was a muffled, sickening crack echoing in the snow. If you were in that situation, would you leave your friend there and run away?